Hello and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. MBOM is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at MBOM, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Mastering the Business of Yoga. I'm Amanda, and I'm your host for this and all episodes of the show. And I am super grateful that you're here with me today. I know you have lots of choices for podcasts that you can listen to. And so I'm really grateful that you've chosen to listen to the show and specifically this episode. This episode is a good one. I'm super stoked to be sharing it with you today. And before we get in, I just want to give a little shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Offering Tree. Offering Tree is my go-to yoga teacher and yoga studio software, and it's a one-stop shop for all things class scheduling, workshops, memberships, video on demand, and so much more. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Offering Tree later on in the podcast episode, so stay tuned for that. But if you've heard about Offering Tree before and you're feeling like now is the time to go check it out, or you just want to go check it out, we've got a special link for you with a discount. It is offeringtree.com/MBOM. And of course, if you have any questions about Offering Tree, make sure that you are reaching out to either them or me. I'm always happy to chat. Today on the podcast, I am super stoked to be joined by Finka Jerkovic. She's an author, international speaker, workshop leader, and coach. She's the president of Finka Communications, Inc., and she consults with clients in the areas of personal branding, leadership, sales, client experience, and employee management. Finka believes when you bring authentic leadership and a mission-based mindset to business, you can achieve inner fulfillment, outer success, and leave a transformational impact. And I absolutely love this approach. So in this episode, Finka shares the importance of sales in our businesses, how we can approach sales from a place of love to reach more clients and feel good about our offerings. She's providing tips, tools, and approaches for how to sell with love. And for those of you who are feeling like sales is a bit icky or you don't like sales, you know you have to do it. I feel like this is the perfect episode for you because it's really about approaching things from a heart-centered point of view and mindset. So let's get to it. Here's Finka. Finka, welcome to the podcast today. I'm really excited to have you here with me.
Amanda, I am so excited to be talking to you today.
Yeah, this is going to be really fun. And I know you've already told me offline, but maybe you can share with listeners where you're joining us from today.
I am a couple hours northwest of Toronto, so about 3 hours northwest. We live on an 85-acre property. Most of it is forest and trails. We grow our own food. I'm a part-time, actually, I call myself the fluky beekeeper. So I keep bees, but everything seems to be working. I'm going to knock on wood right now. Everything is literally, I'm like, I can't believe that worked. Or, wow, I can't believe the split worked. And so we do a couple of farm projects. We've got horses and we have a little micro lavender field and make some essential oils and stuff. But yeah, we moved out here in 2015. Wanted to we were born and raised city folk and said, hey, let's try this other lifestyle, and haven't looked back. So it's been pretty cool and pretty fun doing it. Great as an entrepreneur as well, because I don't know about you, but I know my entrepreneurial creativity loves to dream up new ideas or new programs or new courses. And if you're in business, creativity and innovation is awesome. And it can be an advantage, but it can also be a disadvantage. And so I have learned to use my hobbies or my farm as a place to express other creative projects, so I do not affect my business profitability and future potential because I keep experimenting. So it's been a lesson I've learned over the years.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really interesting to hear. And I think that is a good thing to think about, because you're like, you can use that creative part of your brain, but use it for like gardening or, chickens or essential oils or whatever it is on your property versus like, hey, let me experiment with my business a little bit. And sometimes business experimentation is good, but I think that yeah, it's nice to maybe have that part a little bit more, I guess it'd be like left brained, like analytical, and let the creativity flow in other areas. And I'm curious, just because I've thought like, oh, living on a property would be really awesome. How do you balance, running a business and also owning a property? Because I'm sure there's a lot of, chores and upkeep and things to do when you have animals and vegetables and plants and that type of thing.
Yeah, a couple things. One, there is a ton of work balancing both farm life and business life. So I think a family that kind of chips in. So it is not only me, it's my husband, and we've got a 14-year-old daughter. And we each contribute and play our part in our role on the property. So I think, and our, every year at the end of the year and the start of a new year, we're talking about what do we want to make? What do we want to create? What are we valuing this year? What's most important to us? And then there are those moments, when it gets crazy in life, when everything feels like it's out of alignment and it's not working, or we're all stressed, that we go back to that. And it's like, all right, let's get back to why are we doing what we're doing? And so there is the flux of, things are working well, seamlessly, smoothly, and it's so beautiful. And then there are moments where this is crazy and nuts. How do we even handle and do all this stuff? So I want to just kind of paint the picture of a reality, not like an Instagram reality, a real reality. So juggling is it's part art, and as we know with art, it gets messy every now and then. So, but that's what makes it beautiful and picture perfect. And then the other part is, for me, it has been super important to create this external structure. And what I mean by that is, I am so in love with my work. I love what I do. I love creating, teaching, coaching. I love, all this stuff that I do in my work, whether it's branding, sales, leadership, reading, all that stuff, that I could find myself working 24 hours a day. And I love my other part of my life. I love my family. I love our farm. I love being outside. And so what I have learned about myself is that, and it sounds so awful to say, but I can't trust myself all the time. Meaning, when you say like, okay, I'm going to go work out, I'm going to go for a walk, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to go spend some time, do this, do that. And then it's like, oh, I got to get some work done. Okay, one more email, one more thing. And there's always one more thing on that to-do list. But when now I have horses I got to get out there and take care of, or I've got a garden to tend with, or a dog that needs to be walked, or a family that my husband built a cabin last summer that we're like, all right, last night, Nick, my husband's name is Nick, we did date night in the cabin. And so when we made these commitments, these external structures keep me honest, and I need them to live up to the life that I say I want to live. And so there's a balance of it, a juggling act more than a balance, a juggling act of it. But having both of them helps me be honest to the things that I really, really want in my life, because I can't, maybe I have a hard time choosing. Like I can't choose one. I need them both. And they both fuel, like being outside and doing the stuff that we do outdoors fuels my business. And then the business fuels the stuff on the outside, because it gives one financial resources and all the other things. But there's something beautiful about, I'm building, let's say, a workshop, and I'm struggling with or I'm writing my book and I'm struggling with how to pull the ideas together. There is nothing better than going out and getting your hands dirty and some weeds and some gardening, like just to kind of flush out. I come back and I look at it and I'm like, oh, it's right there. I can solve it right now. And so there's a nice dance that happens with both of these very different worlds, but they keep me honest to make sure I do them, because I've got these other responsibilities. So, because it's easy to negotiate ourselves out of things when we don't have an external responsibility. So again, I'll go back to that example, like, doing my Pilates in the morning. You know what? I got to get to that client thing, or I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it later today. And then later today never happens. But there's no one else that I promise that to, because it's a promise to myself. And sometimes those are the easiest to break. Where these other things, as I created these external structures, it's very hard to break a promise to going outside and wanting to spend more time in nature when I got a horse I got to go take care of. Hopefully that was my long-winded answer to that one.
No, I loved it. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I can really resonate with that, just in other areas of my life, even though I don't have a farm and stuff like that. And so I'm curious if you can share a little bit about your kind of history, your story with sales, and then we can dive in a little bit more to kind of, how you approach sales now and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. So most of my career I spent in corporate financial services, and I was a financial advisor. I was a commercial banker. Then I went into a sales leader, and I led sales teams. And then I went into sales strategy, and then I became a sales coach. And so everything that I did really revolved around this idea of how do we sell? How do we sell our stuff? How do we sell our services? And a lot of the stuff that we did at the bank was based on relationship. You did right by the client. You supported them through what they were looking to achieve and get to. You used your products and services to support and serve them. And so it was a natural sort of fit to what I'm doing today. However, I don't think I told you this, but I do have a quick story, if I can say, in between. So there was a moment back in, I'm going to say it was, let's call it 10 years ago. Let's call it 10 years ago. Yeah. No, maybe even longer. Oh my God. Let's go 15 years ago. So I was working at the bank, and I was into health and wellness. I was practicing yoga, doing my nutritional certification. And I was like, not loving the job. I'm like, I want to do this for a living. And it was so funny. So I was like, I burnt myself out at work, and I literally said, I went back to the office and I said, okay, I don't want to do this job anymore. Can you give me something part-time, a couple of days a week? And I didn't tell them what I wanted to do with the rest of the time, but something that I can do. And then they did. And they gave me like a training position, and I did that for 2 or 3 days a week. And the rest was I went and got my yoga certification, my personal training certification, and I was a spinning instructor. So I decided to open up my own health and wellness business. And it was interesting. So I don't know what my experience then versus the experience that I had after, when I actually did the other leave to do this work that I do today, was I took the thing that I was excited about and passionate about, which was health and wellness, yoga and spinning and personal training, and I wanted to make a business out of it. And what I quickly found out is maybe about 9 to 12 months into it is like, after a day of going out and teaching all day, the last thing I wanted to do was like do it for myself, or and then you learn about all the business aspect stuff that you have to do. I'm like, oh, I don't know about this. And so what I learned from it was like, not to turn, like it was something I was passionate about, but it wasn't the thing that I needed to make a business about. And so I quickly, eventually learned that lesson, went back to work full time. And then, fast forward, 5, 6 years later, I did it again, but found the niche that I really was supposed to be out there teaching, which was what my expertise was on, which was branding and leadership and selling. So, but there was this moment where I did actually try a business around yoga and health and wellness, but realized it was a passion, not a way of making a living for myself.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And so what came next for you? Like, how did you kind of end up where you are today?
So I ended up, I think for me, I don't know if you had this question. Do you have like, what did you want to be when you grew up? When anyone asked me that when I was younger, it was, I wanted to be a teacher.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. And so I think that this is sort of I've always wanted to teach and be a teacher. I just didn't know it wasn't going to be, like in elementary school or secondary school or anything like that. But was something that I wanted to be. And then when I went back to the corporate world, I really got clear on what I wanted to do. And so that's when I got into coaching and sales coaching and leadership coaching. And then I got certified back in 2013. And when we moved up here in 2015 was kind of when I said, okay, I'll take this thing seriously, and started really like doubling down on my work here. And so that's, yeah. So again, I coupled it with my background, and it was interesting. The first part of my business, I was solving a branding problem, meaning I really built my work around helping people develop their personal brands. And what had happened was anytime someone developed or built their personal brand was like, okay, now how do I sell it? What do I do now? What do I do now? And so then it was like, oh, well, you got to go sell it. You've got to go figure out how you're going to sell your ideas, your programs, your thought leadership, whatever it might be that they were looking to sell. And that's how I decided, let me really help people with that next problem. After they figure out what their brand is, how do they put themselves out there, and how do they get clients to grow their business? And so that's the impetus to selling from love. So I wrote a book called Sell from Love. And really, it's built on the foundation that, and then when I reflect on my entire career and how I've worked and led teams and what I teach in my core curriculum, it was always along these three pillars. Number one, I almost want you to imagine a house. So let's say you had a house, and the foundation of that house is this first pillar, which means loving yourself, meaning love who you are, love all the parts of your personality, your expertise, what you bring to the table, and also letting go of all the things that you are not, and really accepting that you're good for certain things and you're not so hot to do other things. And the other part of that is also learning not only what your strengths and your weaknesses are, but what is that shadow side that you bring? Because I know for me, my creativity is my genius, but it's also my Achilles heel. I'm great with ideas, but too many of them is what gets in my way. And hence the first story I shared with you about using, other venues to express creativity. So I'm going to continue to be creative in my business, but there's a strategic vision behind that creativity versus haphazard. Hey, let's try this. Let's try that. Let's try this. Like, we want to obviously continue to experiment. And so that's that first pillar, your foundation, love yourself. And then the second is loving your client. And so I want you to think about at the front door, that's like that place we are greeting our clients. And so in what way are you creating invitations, or how are people seeing the signposts to come to your front door, to your business, to your website, to your social media, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram page? Like, what are the ways in which you are facilitating an invitation so people can discover you and understand how you can help them? And, if they've got particular challenges that they're struggling with, what you can do with them. And then we go to the top, which is the roof. And that's the third pillar, which is loving your offer. And loving your offer is really about, again, just picture the roof. It's the highest part of the house. It's the place where, even from afar, people can see, hey, what's that sign? What's that on that roof? And that's where our billboards go up. Like, how are you letting people know about the work that you do? How are you creating brand awareness? How are you engaging them? And again, how are you facilitating those invitations so they find your front door? And then the best way, when we are selling from this place of love, think about the chimney, and out the chimney comes that smoke, that are actually letting people know you exist. Like, there's like the smoke screen, it's there. Those are the people that you have served already, and they are going to be the biggest advocates and voices of your work, of your impact, and of the transformation that you create for them. And so how do you create, I like to call them devoted insiders, the people or your fans, those super fans? How do you create those that, again, it doesn't become so hard for you to work? I remember, working as a financial advisor, it was about after 2 years on a portfolio that I didn't have to work so hard anymore, that I did everything that I could to serve the needs of my current clients and who I was serving, that eventually they just sent people my way. And that's what we are all doing. I know if I'm looking for, someone or anything, like recommend a good book, I'm asking a friend, hey, do you know a good graphic designer? Do you know a good, right now I'm ready to publish my second book. It's like, I need a book cover designer. Who do I reach out to? We are more apt to take a referral from a friend and a colleague versus, trusting something that we see on Google, a Google ad, Instagram feed that shows up on our Instagram. So an ad that shows up. So, really, what are we doing to do that? So again, to sell from love, we've got to do three things. It's love yourself, love your client, and love your offer.
Hey, yoga studio owners, this one is for you. I am super, super excited to share with you that Offering Tree now has software and functionality made just for you. This means that there is the capacity to add more than one teacher, to create a more intricate and in-depth schedule, to do payroll, to do pricing, sub out teachers and all of that good stuff. And one of the things that I'm super, super stoked about with Offering Tree announcing this is that you are able to do everything you need for your studio under one umbrella. So that means one login, one payment, one software. I know from working with yoga studios that it can be a bit of a headache working with a number of different software programs and trying to get everything to function very well and all of that type of stuff. I know one yoga studio I was working with was using, a scheduling software, a software for their video library, a software to make sure that the link can go out from Zoom and all of that type of stuff. That's, 3 logins, 3 payments, so much complication, so much headache. So with Offering Tree, you get to do all of that for one payment, one affordable payment, and they just make everything super simple, super functional. So if you are interested in this, head on over to offeringtree.com/demo, book a demo, get all the information. And you can also head on over to offeringtree.com/mbiome and get your discount as a listener there. All right, now back to the episode. Amazing. I am really in love with everything that you just said. And I think that that's such a beautiful way to approach sales. And I think that a good place to go would be to dive a little bit deeper into how we actually apply this, because I think that yoga teachers and wellness entrepreneurs fundamentally understand this. They got into teaching because they're passionate about the practice and they're passionate about sharing it with other people. And I think that there's a way that you can kind of authentically, I guess, quote unquote, sell what you're doing. But then in this sort of big growing industry with a lot of teachers and, you're trying to stand out and you're trying to share what you're passionate about. It's we do have to do, some of that marketing and some of that sales and the branding and all of that. And I think that's where people get a little bit stuck because they feel like, oh, well, I don't want to put a price on this, or I don't want to have to think about who am I actually targeting. And we do have to do all of that. So I'm curious if we could dive into how we do that, but we do it from a heart-centered place. We do it from this place of love.
Yeah. So first, when we have that narrative in our minds around the money conversation, I feel like I'm pushing something on them that they don't want or they might not need. And, if they want it, they'll find me or, whatever it is. Know that those types of conversations that we're having internally or externally with our colleagues and our friends, those aren't heart-centric conversations. Those are fear-based conversations. And, I know for myself and for my clients, and I encourage, as you're listening to this, if you're having that conversation, really inquire with yourself, is this dialogue that you're having, is it coming from a place of fear of what people might think, fear that you're going to get a no, fear that people they're going to think this is too expensive or too little or whatever that might be. And that there is some seed of fear that's going on there. And to really look at your business as an extension of how you're here to make a difference, how you're here to add value. And if your business does not make money, if your business is not profitable, you cannot make the change, you cannot create the transformation, and you cannot deliver the goods that you are seeking to deliver. People need yoga. People need to reconnect with their bodies, their minds, and their spirits. And you give this beautiful gift to give a client an opportunity to experience that. And now then we get in our own way, oh, the money and this, I don't want to ask. It's yeah, but it's not about you. It's not about the money you're going to make. It's about what they're going to get because they decided, not you, decided to actually get into that studio or book a private session with you or with your other yoga teachers or your team. And it's that we need to be focusing in on. And so if you notice yourself in that dialogue, it's switching it from, it's not about what I'm going to get. It's about what they're going to receive because they got to have this experience. So that's what you're doing. You're actually giving people, they're getting something out of this deal. Not only you, it's not about you. It's about actually what they're going to get. What you get out of it is oh, great. You get to live out your purpose. You get to do this wonderful work. You get to do some yoga and make some money doing it. And if you're not making money, so a love-based business, a heart-centric business is profitable. And so if you're not yet profitable, we got to get you in that mind space of, okay, if I'm going to be heart-centric and love-based, and if I want to share these goods and make the world a better place, you can't do it if you're not making money. And we got to get you making money because it's super important. And so how do you make money? I'm going to say one of the best places to start is to start with the end in mind, meaning if you know for the next, we're in August 2022 right now, but for now, even if you do short term for the next quarter, by the end of the calendar year, you need to make $30,000 in revenue or $150,000 or $500,000, whatever it is your studio or your practice needs to be generating. Put that number out there. And again, there's like the optimistic, the pessimistic, the realistic, and the idealistic. So, don't give yourself something so massive that it feels daunting, something that is ideal. So there's a bit of realism and a bit of optimism, and it's stretching you to stretch yourself a little bit. But what's that number? Actually call it out. Give yourself that number. And then you start working backwards. All right. So you're actually, instead of starting from the beginning, meaning, like that, you literally start with the end. What do you need to make? And then how many clients do you need to serve? What programs are going to be the most appropriate to help you achieve that goal? How many people do you need to be helping and having in your studio? And so that sort of work backwards is super important because oftentimes what happens is we start from the beginning. But we don't have a destination yet. And so one is describe the destination. Where are you heading? And so again, it's when you're planning a vacation, it's not like I'm going on vacation. You actually pick the destination. We're going to Hawaii, or I'm going to Amsterdam, and you pick the destination and then you work backwards. So that's what you do first. The second is the map. You start mapping out, how you're going to get there. And that's sort of, what are the programs, the offerings, what are the ways in which you can achieve that goal. And the third, I'm going to say, I like to call it make it interesting. Make it interesting for you and make it interesting for your potential clients that you're seeking to work with. So, there are really easy traditional ways in which, we do an email funnel, we do an online campaign or an Instagram live series or whatever that might be. But what if you did something different? What if you did something different? I'm in the midst of launching my next book. And for me, books are great. It's my second book. I'm looking, not next year, but every other year, write another book. And that is what helps me keep it interesting. It's a thing I love writing. So find the thing that you love to do. Is it writing? Is it video? Is it in-person experiences? What are the things that you love to do to create engagement? And that is then how people become aware of you, how you create those invitations, and how eventually, you're seeking to fulfill, your offering. So, getting the out there and serving more people.
Yeah, thanks for all of that. That's really good information. And it's almost like you read my mind as you were talking. I was like, oh, I want to ask her about, which sales channel she kind of, likes or recommends. So maybe we can dive into that a little bit. I know you mentioned a couple kind of popular ones like social media, ads, lives, that type of thing. But, if somebody's like, okay, I can kind of overcome my mental blocks around sales. I know I need to make money so I can do this thing that I love. I can't, pour from an empty cup type thing. But they're like, okay, I don't even know where to begin actually selling to my people. What are some good tips for somebody who might just be starting out?
I would say some things not to be doing first is don't start creating email funnel campaigns and sporadic social media adventuring, experimentation. I'm going to say go out and talk to real people. Selling is about real people and real conversations. I think, and I know I've fallen into the trap. I know my clients often do. There's this sense that even in an online business, if you teach online, even in an online business, they all are with real relationships. So there are two types of CRMs you can have. So a client relationship management system. The one is where it's an automated email list where, you collect people's emails and, whether it's weekly or bi-monthly or whatever period of time that you do to send out newsletters, blogs, insights, whatever it is, that piece that you're adding value, that you just email that email list. That list is good. However, the better list that I think you need to be focusing on, especially when you're starting, is the real people list, the people that you're not emailing, but you have relationships with. Like, so when we say CRM, it's not just sort of that transactional email that goes out to the list. Like, I've got that list on my CRM, which every week they get announcement on my podcast. So there's sort of this passive, easy way of continuing to stay in touch, let them know I exist, the latest insight or topic that I'm talking about on the podcast that they can engage with. So there's like that passive, very general, not passive for me because there's activity that I'm doing to create that podcast, but there's not a real formal, I'm not asking them to engage with me proactive. Like I'm not expecting a response for them. Okay. So that's one thing. So think about having what that could be for you, but more importantly, it's really thinking about who are the real people. Start that list. Who are real people you're having real conversations with? Who would you like to work with? Maybe having some discovery calls. Like, what are the conversations that you're having? I've got a discovery call this afternoon for someone who's looking at the Self from Love Accelerator. They're not on my email list. They're on my real relationship list. Like they're on that list that I'm cultivating relationship. We're going to have this meeting. She may or may not say yes to Self from Love Accelerator. And if not, we're going to have a really good conversation. And guess what? I will then have possibly, depending on how that conversation goes, if accelerator is a fit, but maybe timing's not right, I'll follow up with her in September and then maybe in November, but really having this more active CRM list. So I want you to look at so much, because selling is a personal, intimate experience. And we have delegated it to digital systems and it doesn't work. And so what I want you to think about when you're selling, that there are these two ways. There's the passive. You can send out an email, create your online course, send out an invitation, click, click, click. They say yes. They may not say yes. They may sign up for it. They may not sign up for it. But there's this more active, and where I believe we all are often where people get stuck is they delegate their selling to that passive strategy or task or a way of tactic. And then they don't get results. And they're wondering, why aren't they getting results? Yeah, because it's passive. It's not active. And so who are the real people? And that could be real people that you know. It could be people that know people that you know. And it could be introductions to other people. Like, for instance, yesterday I interviewed someone on my own podcast, and he talks about branding and culture work. I talk about selling and culture work. And so we're kind of we swim in similar lanes, but different lanes. And I have an expertise in financial services. And so even in my podcast, we had a really great conversation. We talked about, at the end of it, he's like, hey, I love the work that you're doing. Can you send me, a brochure of what you do with corporate training teams, like with their sales teams? So when I have my clients looking for sales training, I know who to send them to. That was a real conversation and a real connection. And those are the ones we miss out on when we're so busy figuring out how to do it online when our businesses aren't even ready for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I think that that's a beautiful reminder. And especially for, yoga teachers, like if you are teaching, even 2-3 classes every week, you're in front of people who enjoy what you have to offer. Like those are your people. Those are the people to talk to. And I think sometimes we get sort of stuck in this mindset of like, oh, I need to be on like all the social media platforms and I need to have, my email list and I have to have, an automated thing that gives somebody a freebie and then send emails regularly. So I'm not just selling to them. And yes, I love all of that. I think all of that is really amazing, especially if you're running, a digital business and something that's just online. But I think that even with that, the point you're making about like connect with people, talk to them, get to know who they are. Those are going to be the people who are going to be really interested in what you have to say, what you have to sell. And I feel like that takes kind of this like discomfort around selling out of it because you're actually talking to somebody to see if you can serve them and their needs and if you're the right fit. And like you said with your call later, either way, it's going to be a beautiful conversation, regardless of if they say yes to joining your program. And so I just really love that approach to things. And I feel like it just makes it feel a little bit more tangible and a little bit less scary. And I think as somebody who runs an online business, sometimes it's like, I see that people are opening my emails and I see that people are downloading my podcast, but I don't know a lot of those people and I don't know what they think or anything like that. And it can feel a little bit like, disconnected. And when I actually get to see somebody on a call or connect with them for a consultation or a coaching call or a program, workshop, et cetera, it's like, oh, cool. I can actually get to know who this person is. And that's what it becomes just a little bit more invigorating, I guess you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think about, if you're in the studio and you've got those real people, it's like, you just ask them, you just have these great conversations. And after every class, you make it a point to have 3 conversations with the students that were in that class, just to learn what's going on in their life, what's top of mind, what are they up to? Even that question, like what's top of mind for you these days? You're not asking them what they're struggling with and what are their challenges. It's like, what's top of mind? What's keeping you, even if you can venture down, what's keeping you up at night, those kinds of things. Right. And then, from there, you have these research, you've got like live people telling you, they know they're coming in for yoga to do something for them. Are they getting it out of it? What else is missing? What else do they need? And then you can just go make something for them. And what else is that thing that they just, it takes the guesswork of like, oh, I wonder, because our email list too, like when you think about that online space, it's like, I don't know, do they need this? And we start making stuff that they might not even need or want. And then we're wondering why people aren't responding. I think of Sarah Blakely, founder and creator of Spanx. She has, I signed up for this thing called Masterclass, and they have all these experts come in and they do like the masterclass on their business or their topic. And I remember watching the videos Sarah Blakely had, and she said in them that when like she sold Spanx, like when I think it was Nordstrom said yes to feature her first product, she was in the store selling her product. No one else was. She was ecstatic to got on their shelf or on their thing. And she would sneak around. And she said she would get, like those clear brochure stands to put the product, to put her Spanx in. And she just put them on the counters around the department store. She goes, they didn't say yes, that she could do it or not, but she just started putting them around because she wanted to create the awareness. But then she was talking to people about the product and then finding out what they're struggling with when it comes to putting their outfits on, what are their qualms and what are they, and so that helped her get more insight into her product and how to improve it. And there was this one place where it was a husband and wife that came in, and she said that she's talking to the wife. I can't remember even the line she said about how she got to talk to her about, she's like, I can make your butt look better in that outfit or something like that. And so then she comes over and she's talking to her, and the husband's like, as through the conversation, the husband's like, you're the founder, you're the CEO of this company? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, don't you have anything better to do with your time? Right. And she sat back and she's like, for a moment, it took her back like, oh my gosh, should I be doing something else? Should I be in the office? Should I be planning? Should I be strategizing? And so it's like, no, this is the exact place I need to be. And what I'm doing is the most important thing. And it just, I get goosebumps just thinking about it, like the most important thing we could be doing is selling our work, and I know, some of our work is a service-based work, and it's different than having this physical product that she had. But at this end of the day, we're selling the same thing. Like she's selling confidence. So we're selling confidence. She's selling, joy or feeling good. We're also selling those things. It's just the vehicle and vessel that we're selling it. And I think it's a beautiful example of if we're not going to go on the top of the roof of our house and love our offer that much that we are willing to be questioned, like Sarah Blakely did that day around, isn't there anything better you can do? No, I need to be on the roof. I need to be telling, showing, and declaring to people why this thing I do here is amazing and why they need to be, in this studio doing this yoga practice with me and my team.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I also really love what you were talking about with just a little bit back from that with, if you've got people that you're teaching in person, or even if you're doing, online, if you're, still not back in person with the pandemic and such, no problem. If you're in front of people, like just making a point of having conversations with people. And I think a lot of what's kind of thrown around in like the marketing and sales world when it comes to creating programs and offerings is like, make sure you're doing market research. And it kind of comes back to what you were saying about like, we start creating things, but we don't actually know if people want them. And then sometimes we have, launches that flop and we get discouraged and we feel like it's us. And, we just can go into a kind of a negative spiral with those things. And I totally know this because I've had it happen to me and it doesn't feel good. But it's like this idea of market research doesn't have to feel so like cold and masculine and, unfriendly. Like having a conversation with a student after class can be a really genuine, beautiful form of market research where you're just asking questions. And it can just be something as simple as like, what did you like about today's class? Like, how are you feeling in your body? That type of thing. And they'll give you the information you need. It's like all of a sudden, you have 3 students who are like, oh, my lower back is so janky. I've been hiking lots this summer. It doesn't feel good. And it's like, maybe I could offer something to my students that helps, with the lower back, helps them feel better. And it's like, boom, there you go. You've got an idea, that type of thing. You've got people who have already validated that they're interested in that. So I just wanted to bring that up because I think sometimes we can just get caught up in like all of this feeling a little bit hard and maybe a little bit cold. And it really doesn't have to be. It can be really, heart-centered and genuine and come from a place of just really wanting to serve people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, and it doesn't have to be a big thing either. Like, if you're having those kinds of conversations and they're like, yeah, all that hiking and, my back's really feeling it, or my hips are tight, and you might not have, like, it might not be a whole, because sometimes we can make a whole big thing of it. It's like, okay, I'm going to launch, September 1st, we're going to do this whole, get your body back in gear, ready for fall, 45 days. And then, we all the best intentions, we try and let's set it up. And then either it doesn't happen or we put too many bells and whistles on it. And so it doesn't come through because it just takes over. What if it's just like a PDF or a brochure or a handout that you put at the front desk at the end of every session? Like it's just a value add piece. Hey, 3 exercises you can do in the morning as you are, or preempt for next summer, that you're going to plan this for next summer, that this is a challenge that happens for your students as they walk in because they're hiking and they're super active. And, anything that you can just start thinking through and make it simple and easy. I think often what happens is we make a big deal of, oh, this is a good thing we can do. And then all of a sudden it turns into this, hey, let's do this massive program or this massive launch. And it's like, actually, it doesn't need to be that. It could have been a PDF and add value, throw it out there. Okay, what's the next thing? Add value, throw it out there. And like just something that you can really quickly turn around. And then eventually, if you find after 3 of these, 4 or 5 of these like little pieces of add value, everything seems to be revolving around lower back issues. Heck, let's do a specialty class, a specialty program, whatever, make it fancy, like make it different and unique in some way, specific to lower back. Great. So, again, so I guess from that was, keep it simple, and get it out there as fast as possible. So there's this like urgency of, I'd rather you get out more stuff than sit and wait to get the right thing to get out. So making stuff and putting it out into in front of your clients, in front of your students as fast as possible will help give you the insight because they're immediately reacting to it. And then you're getting more and you're more, you get on that hamster wheel versus should I, shouldn't I, what should we do? No, you're a doer. You're just getting it out. So, and this is the sense because of being heart centric and love centric and that sort of that yoga being state. It's super important for us because that's where our intentions and our energy come from for the work that we are creating. And I will say there's a balance of the doing. And so that we're not so in the being and immersed in being that we forget to do. We have to do something. And so there's this delicate dance with the masculine and the feminine energy of being and doing the doing part becomes very important. That's why when you ask me that question, how do you sell? Start with the end in mind. What do you want to actually get or achieve, or how many people do you want to serve and help? That's that's the masculine thing that you want to name, and then work backwards. Why do you want to do it? Why is it important? Hey, that's the being energy. And then you go back to doing, okay, what do I need to do to get there? There's more doing energy. All right, how do I want to show up as I'm doing it? There's being energy. And so that way that this love-based or heart-centric approach is very balanced. And so there's this, even just asking yourself those questions. Okay, I want to do this. All right, how do I want to be with this? Okay, I want to be this and I want to feel this. All right, so what do I do? What often can happen with us heart-centric people is we drown. I was going to say immersed. We overwhelm ourselves with feeling and being, and we don't go out and do enough. And the doing part is what's going to actually give you some clarity, and just being mindful of that, I think, is what I really want to call out here.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like that is just a really beautiful place to kind of end this part of the discussion. I know we have a couple more minutes left, and I wanted to ask you about your book. I know it's called Sell from Love. And just, can you tell us just briefly about it, where people can go to get it, all that good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sell from Love, love yourself, love your client, love your offer. Again, goes through the 3 pillars, gives you lots of detail on how to go from fear-based to love-based selling. And it balances that being and doing we're just talking about. And so you can find it on Amazon, and or you can visit my website, sellfromlove.com. And I have another book coming out this fall, so stay tuned for that. If you check out Sell from Love on my website, you'll also follow up with me in the fall, where I'm coming out with transformational selling. So it'll be it's a book about 8 habits that we need in order to deepen relationships and sell more of our stuff with integrity. So that's the next one coming out.
That sounds juicy.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one. Really excited.
Yeah, amazing. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 about all of that, because that sounds right up my alley as well.
I'm with you. I'm there.
Amazing. Finka, thank you so much for your time today. Is there anywhere else where you're hanging out online where people can find you and connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn. You can connect with me there, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been a real pleasure.
Thanks, Amanda. Same here.
All right, friends, I hope that you enjoyed that episode of the podcast. A huge thanks to Finka for this amazing conversation. I hope that you all enjoyed it and resonated with it. And a huge thank you to the sponsor for this episode, Offering Tree. Make sure you go check them out. Give them some love, offeringtree.com/MBO. And of course, thank you to you, the listener of the show. I am so grateful that you are here listening to the podcast, and I couldn't do it without you. All right, that's all for this week, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. To find links, notes, resources, and everything mentioned in today and all episodes of the show, you can head on over to mbomyoga.com. You can find the podcast and myself on Facebook and social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I would love for you to join the private Facebook community, Yoga Business Badasses. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please make sure you reach out to me at info@mbomyoga.com. And last of all, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. It would mean the world. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.